Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this webinar brought to you by International HR Professionals in Paris. Tonight, we're going to be talking about co-development in the workplace. I'm very lucky to have here with me, next to me, Viviane Ross, who's a French-American consultant, coach, and trainer. Viviane is dedicated to help teams and leaders through coaching practices such as co-development, which she will show us tonight. And also for this webinar, as I said on the communications, it is we're going to be using a real case as an example. And for this, we had Sandrine Vilcod, who kindly offered. And Sandrine, today, she's international recruiter and career coach. And thanks to her international experience, which she has a lot, and her multiple languages skills, she dedicates today to help others also to find new jobs in a new place. So thank you very much to both of you. I will quickly just turn on the camera for you to see Viviane.
Hello.
I'll lead you to it. So we do have those things.
Do we wait for other people to join?
No, it's fine. They will join us sometime.
So good evening, everyone. I'm very happy to be with you. As Jessica said, I'm a coach, consultant, and trainer, and I've been using co-development in the last year. 2-3 years now. I've actually trained in co-development, and I think it's a very powerful tool which I would like to share with you today. So what I'm going to do first is give you some information about what is co-development and some definitions about the method, and then we will actually test the method with Sandrine on a real case. Of course, it's going to be much shorter than a real co-development session, but at least it gives you a bit of insight on what co-development is all about. So to start, I will be showing you a brief presentation explaining what the co-development method is. And maybe before I start, I would like you to write who knows or has used co-development. If you can just say, I know co-development, I've used it, in the chat. It would be helpful. I don't see any answers appearing. So who has used co-development already? Nobody?
Okay, we have Jean who says, no, I did not. And Stephanie who says, I've used it a little bit.
Okay, I can see. So Jean, no, I did not. Stephanie, I've used it a little bit. And what about the others? Heard and read about it, but not really used it before. Good. So this is what co-development. It's first of all, it's a professional development approach, meaning that we're going to tackle professional subjects, not personal, although it probably could be used in a more personal way, but here it's professional. And the idea is to be learning from each other, meaning that it's also the group effect that's going to be working out here. Also, it's going to enable us to improve our skills and practice by a consultation exercise using real professional situations from the participants, meaning that we're not going to be using theoretical cases, but really what participants are going through today, what their real problems are today. And it's a method that was actually created, or let's say they use different types of methods, by two people called Claude Champagne and Adrien Payette. So of course, for all of us who speak French, Champagne and Payette sounds pretty good as a method, champagne and glitter. And we call it the Champagne and Payette method. Now, what I'm going to show you now is not the traditional Champagne and Payette method. I've changed it a bit. I've experienced a lot of different ways of using co-development, and this is what I'm using today. So the benefits of this method are, first of all, that we take a step back, and it enables people to stop for 2.5 hours once in a while and take a step back from everyday work. It also enables people to form a support group, whether it be in the company, so it could be a peer group inside a company, or it could be a peer group outside the company, like it could be an HR support group, it could be any function support group outside the company. The idea is that we, with what we use in terms of skills during the co-development sessions, we learn how to help and to coach other people. So that's one skill we can develop. But we also learn to be helped by others and recognize that sometimes we need help. And in companies, it's interesting that people are able to say, well, I have a problem, can you help me with this problem? It's also very good at developing cooperation. I work in some companies that, as you might have seen yourselves, work in silos, and this is a very good way to foster cooperation inside a company. If you have any questions, please use the chat, of course. So in terms of the way it works, the principles, what we do is we form a group of about 6 to 10 participants that will meet once a month, once every 2 months, what's possible. And at each session, all participants will present a subject, a problem, and then we will choose one subject, and this person will become the client. So Sandrine will be our client tonight. And the other people are consultants, and there's also a facilitator, usually somebody like me who's been trained in co-development and who's more outside the company, although I now have been training internal facilitators for some large corporates. The session lasts about 2.5 hours. That's an average. I've done shorter, I've done longer, everything's possible. Now, the way it works, I'll go a little more in detail after this, is that there are 6 steps to be followed. So it's a very thorough method. You really have to go through these 6 steps for this method to work. The first one is the situation, the second clarification, the third contract, the fourth consultation, the fifth action plan, and the 6th learnings. So going through a little bit more detail. The situation is about choosing, first of all, everybody's going to write a subject, whether it be a preoccupation, a problem, or a project, what we call the 3 Ps, which is something that people are really living through, that they can do something about it and they need help about this problem. And it's not in the traditional method, but I like to have people think about how urgent is this problem. So I asked them to write on a scale of 0 to 10, what's the urgency? Is it something that needs to be solved tomorrow, the day after, or in a month? What's the intensity? Meaning, how bad does it hurt? Is it something it boggles the mind every day? I think about it 10 times a day, or is it something that comes up once in a while? And the recurrence, meaning, is this a problem that I've had, this is the first time I have this type of problem, or it's a problem I've had in the past already? This is going to help us when we share the subject. So everyone is going to, in a couple, very briefly talk about their subject, and then there's going to be a collective choice of the subject by the group. That can take a little bit of time. I put 10 minutes. The voting process is possible. I prefer not to use it, but usually the group manages to find a consensus and chooses the subjects. So tonight we have chosen the subject already to gain a bit of time. After that, the person who's become the client, who's agreed on becoming the client, does a brief presentation of their situation in about 3 minutes. And the consultants, so the other consultants, listen to this presentation. And after that, what I ask them, and this is not in the classic method as well, is to give a resonance on what happened. What did they feel during this presentation in terms of image or emotion or sensation? Something that's not so rational, not so in the facts, but really what I felt when I've listened to this situation. Second phase, so this is about 35 minutes, the situation. Then we go into the second phase, which is clarification, which is a key step here, because it's when we are going to try to find out more about the situation. So here the consultants are going to ask open questions on the past and the present to the client, what we call exploratory questions, questions that concern context, facts, people, feelings. And in my method, it's not always the case, but the client does not answer, just takes notes and writes down all the questions. the client does not answer at first. Once all the consultants have asked the questions, the client is going to rephrase his or her situation. Taking into account all these questions, the client is going to rephrase, maybe answer some of the questions, maybe not, and say, well, actually, my problem is this and that. And the fact of having asked all these questions usually already gives another vision to the problem. After that, we go into a phase of contract where the client expresses what they need from the group. Can you help me? Give me some ideas. Give me some benchmarking. Let's do a role play. How can the group help me find a solution to this problem? The consultants rephrase the demand, agree on the contract, agree to help the client. So this phase is about 20 minutes and then 15 minutes on the contract. And then we go into what we call the consultation phase, where here the consultants are going to be working, giving advice, recommendations, best practices, role play, simulations, and here the client can participate, ask questions, clarify. That's about 30 minutes. After that, the client is going to reflect and choose possible solutions and present first steps and actions that they want to try. And the consultants can help the client specify the action plan. And here we're finished with this case. The last phase, which is very important, because once again, when skills development is what we learn through the session, and each participant, so client and consultants, here express what was the most striking, what was the feelings they had during the session, what did they learn, and maybe what they will do or not, what they feel like doing after the session. So this is about 2.5 hours, and the next time the group meets, there's a feedback, a return on experience. First, the previous client say, well, this is what I was able to do, this I wasn't able to do, and the consultants also share their return on experience. Okay, do we have any questions before we start our case study? Please either use the chat or speak. You can send a request to speak if you like. Well, in that case, I suggest we start with Sandrine's case. So what I'm going to ask Sandrine to do is, so I'm going to go back and I'll go phase by phase. So I'll show you every time. Here we're on the first word. We've chosen the subject already. This is done. But now I'm going to ask, it's let's say 1.3 is, I'm going to ask Sandrine to do a brief presentation of her situation in 3 minutes. And I'm asking you, consultants, to just listen, maybe take a few notes, and I will ask you to react afterwards to this situation, maybe in terms of image or emotion. What did you feel with the situation?
Next. Hi everyone. So my situation is the following. As Jessica told you, I'm an international recruiter. So each time I recruit someone, they're always very motivated when they start working within the company. But then after a few months, I see like it's what they like. It's because it's new, they're learning and everything. And after a few months or 6 months or 1 year, they are not so motivated. So how to motivate people, how to engage them in the long term. So this is something I have seen in different companies. And this is something I also faced, like how to be motivated in the long term. What is the development, talent development plan of the company. Also, how a manager can also motivate you to be motivated, to have an open communication. This is a little bit what I had, the feeling I had when I faced this problem in my own situation, but also in the situation of as a recruiter today. And to be more specific, there is one person who I recruited 6 months ago, and then she was very motivated. This is exactly what she wanted to do. It was something completely different from what she was doing previously. she was more working in finance, and now it's more in the real estate sector. And then after 6 months, she said, "Oh, I really want to change." So what was missing? Maybe we're not too specific during the interview, and yeah, now she could have a change in her role, but then it means that recruiting someone else again. So yeah, I don't know if it's specific enough. I think this is what I wanted to say.
Okay, so going back. So this is a first brief presentation of Sandrine's situation about somebody. So how to remotivate somebody who was hired only 6 months ago. We'll go back on the situation. Maybe just have a feedback from all of you by chat is what image or emotion or how did you feel about this situation when Sandrine gave a presentation on it? So for the moment, we're not at the clarification stage yet. You're going to be able to ask a lot of questions afterwards. I just wanted to have one feedback on how do you feel about the situation. Surprised, okay, by the demotivation. So frequent, okay, engagement, yes. Right, so what we're going to do now is go to the clarification stage now. Let me make things very clear. You are allowed to ask questions about the past and the present, exploratory questions, but in no case questions that have judgments in them, and also no questions where you're already thinking about a solution. So you need to, it's not, did you try to do this or did you think of doing that? That you will keep maybe for the consultation phase later on. But for the moment, we're trying to figure out what was the problem here. So there's a person who's been hired 6 months ago and she's already demotivated. So please go ahead and give chats. I will ask a few questions to Sandrine as well. Here what we're going to ask Sandrine is just to write down the questions without answering. She will answer them if she wants in the next phase. So maybe a question could be, how do you know this person is demotivated? Then Jean had the questions, were the job objectives clear enough at the beginning? I'd have another question, is it your problem? So Stephanie asked the question, could you tell us a little bit more about the team? And who and where is the manager? Other questions? Okay. Could it have anything to do with the company itself? You already, well, let's reformulate the question is, what is the company's responsibility? Jean, what do you mean? But what doubts the onboarding process?
What about?
What about the onboarding process? Okay. So how was she brought on board in this company? I have a question about what demotivates her today. Has this company already had the same problem with other new recruits? Okay, so do you know, what is she looking for? Do you know what she's looking for? What sort of new responsibility is she willing to take now? Questions, were there any difficulties during the 6 months period? Maybe to add to that one, was she confirmed after, is it 3 months or 6 months? 6 months. Was she confirmed after 6 months? Have you discussed this problem with her and the manager? And if yes, what was the outcome? Did she get any sort of training when she started the job? Did this person have previous difficulties in other jobs that you know of? Another question from Jean. Did the context change somehow from the beginning? So Stephanie asked the question, could you tell us a little bit more about the team? And who and where is the manager? Another question for me is, what is your role in the process? No other questions? Is she going through a personal difficult situation that we know of? How old is she? Okay, we're going to ask Sandrine to take a look at your notes and rephrase your situation with all these questions. How could you explain what is the problem here? How can you clarify the problem you have here? Maybe take a few minutes to go through your questions and maybe answer also you can answer some of the questions if you like, not necessarily all. What sort of feedback, what sort of feedback did you get from the company?
So I see most of the questions are related to the context, to understand a bit more what was the situation, to know a bit more about her. Then if I answer to some of the questions, for example, how do you know this person was dismotivated? I could see it like when she was working, when the way she was doing things, she was doing them a bit more like slowly and talking a lot more than working, things like that. What can I say about the onboarding process? Yes, there is an onboarding process where we have a follow-up with the manager and the employee. The manager noticed it after 3-4 months. Do you know what is she looking for? I think she's looking for something where she can learn more, where she can be learning. I think it's very important for everyone, learning, growing, and she had the feeling she was not learning anymore. And she could see some other colleagues who are more learning or doing more interesting things, maybe according to her. I don't know if I have to answer two more questions, or maybe one more. Or
yes, and then I'd like you to reformulate what the problem is. If you rephrase the problem.
Oh, okay, sorry. What's the problem is? The problem is like how to motivate people from the start to
motivate her.
Motivation.
Her,
motivate her.
How to keep her in this company?
Yeah.
How to keep her motivated in this company?
Yeah.
Okay.
How to keep her motivated in this company? Yeah.
Okay. So good. What I'm going to ask.
Yes. Sorry.
Thank you. Switch ears here. So what I'm going to ask you maybe is to each reformulate what you think Sandrine's problem is, and just write a sentence on if you agree with the problem she's just mentioned, meaning how do we motivate this person and keep her in the company, or do you think there's something else behind this problem? And then we will go into the next phase, which is the contract, and see how you can help Sandrine solve this problem. So in one sentence, what do you think the problem is? Do you agree with Sandrine, or do you have another idea? Okay. So is it about motivation or position in the organization? That's still a question. The idea here is more to try to reformulate what the problem is. So it's this person has You think that the problem is this person is either a problem of motivation or a problem of position in the organization. Okay, I got the feeling that one of the issues is that the causes of demotivation are not completely known, right? The problem is to give more motivation to an employee after 6 months in the company. Okay. Good. So what I'm going to ask Sandrine is, how can this group help her find solutions? And what I suggest, because we don't have 2.5 hours, is maybe the contract, if we make it short, could be for you to give her suggestions on what to do about the situation. Is how can we do something for this person to stay in the company and be motivated in this company? Maybe there's a question I'd like something maybe to try to answer is about what are the causes of her demotivation, because that's something you haven't mentioned. If you can answer just that one.
I think there are a few reasons that why she's dismotivated. I think one of them, yes, could be the position. Maybe the position is she was aware of what was the position about, what were the responsibilities, but maybe she found it maybe too administrative, a bit more like more being in the office, and maybe she wanted to be more like with the client. What else can it be? Maybe to see the colleagues were doing something more interesting, maybe according to her. Or maybe the company was promoting a bit more the other departments than the department where she was working. Yeah, can be several reasons, but will be these ones.
Thank you. I think we needed that. We needed that clarification. So I think we needed that clarification. So now just if you can give some suggestions to Sandrine about what to do in the situation. I would make a first suggestions going into that direction of knowing more about the demotivation, making things clear, maybe having an interview with this person and listing all the factors of demotivation so that some of them can be tackled by the manager. And so I'm going to ask you to give other suggestions that Sandrine could use. Okay, understand what her values are and how to align her daily tasks with her values and best skills. So here, it's really going a little deeper into the understanding of what the problem with this person is. And Carolina, how would you do that? Okay, maybe another suggestion while waiting for Carolina's answer is also to have a better understanding on the manager's side of what his expectations are, and whether this person has or has not met the expectations. Okay, going further in this direction, what are the values of the team to approach their values? To make sure that she's in line with the values of the company and the team, probably, yes? Other suggestions? You mentioned learning, and maybe there's more of a development plan and training plan to be done with this person. So Carolina, through coaching, or maybe run a team building with the team to approach their values, right? Coaching, team building. So I agree on having, Sylvie says, I agree on having an interview with that person to better identify the reasons of the motivation. From there, maybe some causes can be addressed by the company, training, coaching. Another suggestion I would have is to review her tasks and her job description and make sure that they're in line with what she was sold as a job. And maybe enrich this job description with a few special missions or what's possible in the company. And Sylvie says it could be interesting to have the company's feedback as well. Absolutely. Okay, to remind her the objectives of the jobs in the near further future. Says Jean. And Carolina suggests open communication with the manager to talk about the career objectives and how this job will help her achieve it. Maybe give her a longer term perspective, I suppose. Any other ideas? No? So in that case, I'm going to ask, this is, of course, a brief consultation because we're limited in time, but this is how it works, is for you to give your ideas. And now I'm going to ask Sandrine to maybe pick what ideas she's going to keep and be able to implement and use as an action plan. Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think a meeting should be organized with her and the manager to have an open communication indeed, and to talk about the objectives, what her objectives, also to link it with the values, what's important for her in the job to be happy, to be satisfied, and to be productive, and to set up an action plan with the manager. I think also a coaching and one-to-one coaching or training could be also organized. A team building could be also a good option to align, to connect the values of this person with the values of the team. And I would like to add, maybe to help her to change the perspective, the way she sees this job right now. It's maybe not the way, to see it more in a positive way, as an opportunity to learn, opportunity to grow, and to see it in another kind of view, more positive. So this is, and you can do that also with coaching. So this is what I would like to do, and this perspective, this is what I would add in the contract.
Okay. So, do you have any other suggestions for Sandrine to add to her action plan? That's other ideas. So maybe your reaction to this action plan, and then we'll go into the last phase, which is the learnings. Just a quick reaction to this action plan, which of course is very brief, but you understand that it's a short session. Okay, so not that I can think of, maybe try to make sure she can find a way to anticipate similar situations in the future. Okay, Jean, what happens if she is not contributive? Well, that's, we won't know. This is an action plan, and maybe Sandrine will or will not be able to set up this action plan, but we will not know what's going to happen, unfortunately. If we had a real group, this is something we talk about next session. What happened, really? Right, try and see that and evaluate and correct. Okay, so what I'm going to ask you, and I'll start with Sandrine, is in this brief session, we're going to go to the next phase, which is the learning phase, which is what was striking for, and maybe what did you learn or what did you feel about this session? And I'll ask Sandrine to start with her reaction, and please don't hesitate to write down immediately your reactions to this. Yes. Considering the method, and the method.
Yeah. So I found it really interesting to see what were the questions from all of you, to understand a bit better the situation, the context. Also, I found it interesting to have all the suggestions for the action plan. What did I learn? I think a lot of you come also from coaching, training, talent development, maybe, and I've seen some good action plans, good ideas, and indeed, I think it's about open communication. I think it's also about being fair, being honest since the beginning, having also a continuous feedback between the manager and the employee, positive and negative feedback to improve all the time. What I feel like doing or not, I think I can take some good examples from all your suggestions. And again, I think open communication to see where can we go, what does she want to do or not, and then move from there. And then, training, coaching, team building, and see how we can help her to be motivated and productive in the company.
Okay. Thank you. So now your reactions more about the methods. I see Carolina has written, collective intelligence is very powerful. We all approach the same reality in different ways, and that is very valuable. Yes, it's what I've seen in my co-development sessions, is that having different perspectives is really very enlightening for everyone. Okay, what else? Other reactions on what was striking for you? What did you learn in the session, and what do you feel like doing or not in terms of maybe using this method in the future? So Sylvie says, interesting approach that dives into the problem more specifically, thanks to the questioning part. Now, yes, Sylvie, you're right. It's really really the main point in this method is not jumping into solutions. And you have to keep people from suggesting solutions too fast. So it's true that the clarification phase is one that I really insist on, and make sure that the questions are not solution-oriented, and that people are trying to find out what the problem is. And yes, the power of the group, coming up with more options than one person alone, of course. Yeah. Okay. Perhaps next time I should ask more precise questions. Which job, which kind of company, size, sector. I think it would help to be more accurate. Now, Jean, in a real session, we would, of course, go a little further into the details, but of course here it was short, and also I think there was confidentiality reasons that we didn't want to say too much about the company. You need to take enough time for each phase. Yes, well, we did in about 45 minutes what we usually do in 2.5 hours, so I think we've achieved a certain objective.
Thank you very much to Viviane and Sandrine for offering this moment to give this webinar to all of you, actually to all of us. It was very, very interesting to hear all your ideas in this method. Thank you so much also to all of you for your participation. This webinar is going to be recorded and shared on the on LinkedIn. This is just a very quick reminder. This is part of the network that we're running, Joanna and myself, International HR Professional in Paris. You have some information about us on the PowerPoint presentation that will be sent to you. We are the coaches and the founders of this network. You can find us on LinkedIn. If you're not already part of the group, you can contact us anytime if you want to connect with other people who are also looking to do peer-to-peer or help each other and do co-development and things like what we're doing tonight. And thank you so much again for being here, and let other people know about us, and let's stay connected on LinkedIn and on Gmail or the email in general. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.